Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of Sefer Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, as we are approaching the end of the second section of Mishlei, which will end in chapter 22. Today we study chapter 20. We discussed the sections back in all the way in the beginning in the introduction. But either way, this is a collection of, guess what, Proverbs. And let's get right into it. Let's let the beautiful words speak for themselves. So it begins chapter 20, verse 1, a timeless lesson, one that apparently hasn't changed in thousands of years. Leitz hayayin home shechar. The wine, in other words, wine, drinking alcohol, is a scoffer. It's I usually like to translate the word late as a sinner, as opposed to what's more often. Not a sinner. A cynic, right? As opposed to a scoffer or a mocker or some of the other words that are used to translate late, because and we've seen this word used numerous times in Proverbs and throughout Tanakh, and it really refers to someone who doesn't take things seriously. And that's what wine leads to. You don't take seriously the serious things of life. You drink it away. You don't take it seriously. You don't deal with them appropriately. Home shechar. And drinking shechar, often translated as beer, but it's not really the same kind of beer that we drink today. It's, fermented liquor, which often may even be stronger than wine. But home, it makes one riotous, is the best translation I've seen of that word. Home, like it leads you to be crazy and not just not take things seriously, but actually act in a destructive manner. V'chol shogebo, and anyone who is involved in it, but shogeh is not just involved, but is embedded in it, is deeply entrenched in it, and constantly doing it, lo yachkam, he will never become wise. The inference here being that it's not so much every once in a while having wine that's the problem, but it's the person that is constantly involved in the drinking of alcohol will never ever learn anything, will never gain, will never become wise, will never become a better person. Verse 2, Naham kakfir emas melach. We've had this verse numerous times. If you look back, for example, in chapter 16, verse 14, you'll see similar ideas. If you look back in chapter 19, verse 12, you'll see a similar idea. The king, the person in charge, the one with the power, of course, this harkens back to the days when kings had absolute authority. But even today, when you're in front of a judge, a leader, a person that has the power to send you off into jail to mete out punishments, his scream, his anger, the fear and the awe that it inspires is like the roar of a lion. You hear the roar of a lion. You're alone out in the forest, in the field. The fear that it inspires, because one has no protection from it. Misabro chote nafsho. If somebody stokes it or provokes it, chote nafsho is going to lose his life. He's going to be guilty of losing his life. If one provokes the lion, one pays the unfortunate consequence. Kavod la'ish sheves meriv. It is honorable for a person to stay away from fights. Avoid arguments, avoid fights, stay away from strife. V'chol avil yiskala, but a foolish person becomes involved in it, becomes entrenched in it, becomes embroiled within it. That is an avil. A foolish person looks for a fight, whereas an honorable person stays away from a fight. Mechoref otzel lo yachrosh. In the wintertime, a lazy person doesn't plow. He doesn't prepare his field in the winter for what's coming in the spring. So then when it comes harvest time, he asks and looks for food vine, but it's not there. If you don't prepare during the times when you need to prepare, then when everyone else is harvesting, you have nothing to harvest. You're stuck. Mayim amukim eitza belev ish. Eitza, it literally this means like advice or counsel within a person's heart is like a deep waters. When a person gives advice or when a person receives advice, the ish tevuna, a person of intelligence, yidlena, will draw from it. It's deep water, that advice. There's more behind that advice. The person has, a smart person will think, what are the motivations? What is the person thinking? What is the kind of experience the person has who's telling you this eitzah? What is the and even the eitzah within which we find ourselves within our own hearts, when our counsel, when our hearts, when our minds tell us to take a certain course of action, an intelligent person, a smart person, an ish tevuna, a person of understanding, literally not smart so much that he knows a lot of things, but smart that he understands, will realize this comes from somewhere. There's a motivation behind this. There's a background story. Again, this is similar to, if you look back again at chapter 18, verse 4, it's worthwhile to look back there and see the discussion we had on this Mayim Amukim, the deep waters. We had a little bit more in depth back there in chapter 18. Rav Adam Yikra Ish Chasto. A lot of people, right? Many people. So there's various ways of understanding this. It could be, lots of people call, well, one way of understanding this is a person calls many people his friends. He says, oh, I have lots and lots of friends. But v'ish emunim, but a person, a trustworthy, a faithful friend, mi yimtza, who could find it. Another way of understanding this verse, which I like a little better, is what many people will stand up and say that they are willing to do chesed, are willing to do kindness, right? Many people, when a man calls out and asks for kindness, Rav Adam, Yikra Ish Chasto, Rav Adam, there will be many people that respond, yeah, I'll do it. Lots of people raise their hands. But Ish Amunim, someone who is actually going to carry it out, Miyim, so whoever finds them, that's a rare find, right? Lots of people volunteer, but who actually does it is a totally different story. So there's just two ways to understand this verse. If you look through the commentaries, you'll see both. Mishalech betumot tzadik, a person who walks with integrity. I like integrity, but tamut is an ish tomim, a person who has integrity, who does what he says he's going to do, who does the right thing because it's the right thing. That is what a tzaddik is. A tzaddik is someone who is mishalech betumo. Like we said, we find this again by Noah ish tamim. Tzaddik kaya b'dorosav. We see these two words going together. A tzaddik is a tam, right? We see this. Jacob was described as tam, ish tam yoshev ohalim. Ashrei banav achrav, and praiseworthy are the children that come after him, that he brings into this world. Whether this is actual genetic, biological children, or those that learn from him, those that observe and absorb the lessons he teaches. Melech Yoshev al Kisei Din, when a king sits on the throne of judgment, Mizoreh be'einav kol ra, with his eyes alone, by the very fact that he is there and that he is looking carefully into the claims being made by those that present themselves for judgment, he has to be Mizoreh. The word Mizoreh it refers to winnow. When one winnows, one has a wheat and that it has been separated from its chaff, from the shells, and one puts it in the wind so that the wind blows away the chaff and the wheat seeds fall down. So you get rid of the junk and you pick out what's real. Mizoreh be'einav, with his eyes, he's able to, a good judge is able to winnow out the false nonsense, the false claims being made, and find the kernels of truth in order to come to a proper judgment. Mi yomar zikisi libi taharti mechatasi. It's a very profound verse. Who can possibly say, my heart is pure, my heart is clean? Taharti mechatasi, that I have gotten rid of my sins. Who can honestly say that? All of us should be trying to find within our hearts, within our souls, within our bodies, within our lives, the flaws that we have, and to cleanse them. But who is the one that can actually say they finished this task? That there's nothing left, there's no place for me to improve anymore. There's always room to improve. Even va'even, Eifa va'eifa to'avas Adonai gam shnehem. This literally translates to stone and a stone, a measure and a measure. Both of them are an abomination to God. This verse 10 harkens back, if you look at chapter 11, verse 1, where it talks about false measures being a to'eva, false measures being an abomination. There are stones and there are stones, right? These are talking about stones that were used for weight, right? Weights. Excuse me. There are stones and there are stones. There are weights and there are weights. There are good ones, there are bad ones. The bad ones are a to'eva, or an abomination to God. That kind of speaks for itself. Verse 11, Gam b'ma'alolav yisnaker no'ar. Even in the ways, ma'alolav means like the little things that kids do, right? In the little nonsense, the little things that they say, the little stuff that they do when they play, when they talk, one can recognize the nature of a child. Personality traits don't just pop up when a person is older. When someone is younger, a nar is not a yeled. A nar is a youth. So it usually means, nowadays, like middle school, maybe early high school age kind of age, right? When one sees the behavior of a child, one can see the path that he or she is on. Doesn't mean it's hopeless. One should recognize these things. Yisnaker no'ar. In other words, to try to help lead them in the right direction. Like we said in the last chapter, we don't give up on our children. We continue to teach them and lead them in the right way. Imzach, is he pure? Im yashar, is he straight? Pa'alo, the things that he does, are his actions proper? Are his actions appropriate? And we can recognize it when they're young so that we can take the actions now. Ozen shomas v'ayin ro'eh. This is really connected to the first verse, to the verse we just read. Ozen shomas, an ear that hears, v'ayin ro'eh, an eye that sees. And this doesn't just mean the physical act of hearing something or the physical act of seeing something, but an eye that sees and sees the depth behind what it is seeing and understands what it is seeing. An ear that hears someone speaking and understands what it is that they're saying. What are the motivations? What is the true meaning? Adonai asagam shneim. God gave us both of these things. God gave us the ability to use our ear, not just to hear things, but to understand things. Not just to see things, but to know where they are going. Right? It's our job, therefore, to use them. Right? This is what it's teaching us to do. These are gifts of God. These are not things for us to abuse. These are things for us to use in order to make ourselves and the world we live in a better place. Al te'ehav sheina penti varesh. Don't love sleep. Don't be the kind of person who just sits around, does nothing, sees with his eyes, hears with his ears, but then just lies down helpless as if there's nothing to do, being lazy. If you do that, right, penti varesh, lest you become impoverished. If you see and understand the world around you, you can support yourself. You can even enrich yourself when appropriate. But you can gain things from the world around you if you just see things and understand them and just babble from the couch. The armchair philosopher, the armchair quarterback, so to speak, who just yaps about what everyone else should do but does nothing. Tivaresh will end up impoverished. Pikache necha, again, open your eyes. Siva lachem, then you will be satisfied with bread. So the eyes that I told you to use, open them, use them, understand them, and then act. Don't just sit down on your couch, right? Then you will be able to use that information, use what you learn, so that you can achieve something. And then the next is the classic lesson of bargaining. When one buys something, the buyer walks in and he talks about all the flaws. Look, there's a scratch over here. This is a little broken. This is a little loose, right? In order to drive the price down. So Ra Yomer Hakona, the buyer talks about how bad this is. He wants to buy a wagon. Look, this wheel is rickety. This one is ugly. This one is a little broken. This one is a little, right? But then when he goes away, Oz Yisalol, that's when he praises it. He goes around telling everybody, look, see what I got. I got this beautiful new wagon. Because he's all happy about the great deal that he got. And this is just an observation of human nature. Again, there's really two types of Proverbs in all of these chapters that we're studying now in this section. And that is the types that are observations about human nature, of course designed so that we can learn lessons from them, but they're more observational, and some are more directional, telling us what we should do. Like the last verse 13 was, do not love sleep. In other words, it's telling us what we should or shouldn't do, as opposed to this verse, which is really an observation about human nature. Yesh zahav v'rav peninim. There is gold and there is a lot of pearls, or peninim, or it could be just jewels in general. So there is a lot of wealth around. You can accumulate wealth, you can accumulate riches, but ukli hakar, but the truly valuable vessel. Now the difference between a kli hakar, a valuable vessel, and zav and gold and jewels are inherently valuable because we value them. But a kli, a vessel, has a purpose. It's not just expensive. You can have an expensive vessel, but it's not just expensive, but you use it to do something, to achieve something. And what is the best vessel, the most valuable vessel? That is sifsei das. That is wise speech. Someone who learns and knows how to speak wisely, to teach things that are useful, that are important, that increase knowledge, and that increase our understanding. This is the end of verse 15, so this is really the first half of chapter 20. So I'm going to end here. I look forward very much to studying, of course, the second half of chapter 20 with all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. If anyone wants to email me directly, feel free to email me at weinrebsaul@gmail.com. That's WEINREBSAUL@gmail.com. Feel free to comment in any of the public forums. I very much appreciate your participation, and I wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful day.